So hello, welcome back. I'm Dr. Oscar Hernandez, board-certified internist and practicing pediatrician. You've been following a lot of these videos and we're talking about COVID-19. That's not the only thing we have to talk about in life, but folks, let me tell you, this pandemic is just impacting our entire world. And in Florida, in Miami, we are now the epicenter again of the rise in COVID-19 cases in the state of Florida. I had previously had some good news for you, which is that even though our cases were rising, our death rate was still falling. We really have seen an increase in the death rate as well. So everybody needs to hunker down. I'm going to take my mask off because I'm more than 6 feet away from you. Well, obviously you're watching on a video, but what I'm trying to show you is that if you're more than 6 feet away, 2 arm lengths from somebody, you probably don't need a mask. And if you use a mask, remember, N95 or KN95, these are really the masks that protect you, the wearer. Other masks may be useful to protect other people. I've harped on this over and over again, but there's just no end to the number of people who are wearing cloth face masks thinking that they are protected. Well, there's a lot to talk about today in a short video. I'm going to start with an email that I got yesterday from the Florida Department of Health. And it's basically a little one-page document that says, COVID-19, you tested positive. Now what? I'm getting a lot of calls from patients, from businesses, from employers, from churches. Somebody was positive in our institution, in our business, in our school, whatever. What are we supposed to do? We need to test everybody. You probably don't need to test everybody. Go on the website to the Florida Department of Health. Get this little flyer. We'll try to put it on the screen in a moment. And again, it's titled, You Tested Positive, Now What? Almost everything I do now has to do with COVID-19. Fortunately, I have other doctors and nurse practitioners who work with me, folks who are still taking care of all your other problems, your cholesterol, your diabetes, your pressure, your rashes, your nausea, your abdominal pain, whatever it is, we're here for you. Remember, we've never closed the office, and we're not going to close the office. We try to do as much as we can through telemedicine, but telemedicine isn't perfect for everybody. I want to touch today on something called a challenge trial. There's a website called One Day Sooner. You can look it up for yourself. One Day Sooner is collecting volunteers, and thousands have joined as volunteers for this particular activity over the past few months. One Day Sooner is an organization that was founded by a Harvard graduate who was initially involved in getting kidney donations faster to patients who needed them. But in the wake of the COVID epidemic, when our transplant units have really significantly dropped their activity, what he has rerouted his efforts to is this idea of One Day Sooner. One Day Sooner has to do with the concept of getting the vaccine for COVID-19 or whatever multiple variables of this vaccine will be available to us in the near future, one day sooner by providing volunteers who will accept the vaccines in stage 3 trials. That means when they're ready to be looked at to make sure that they are safe and effective for everybody. And these folks volunteer to get this vaccine and then submit themselves on purpose to COVID-19 exposure. The way these trials are usually run is that you have somebody get the vaccine, some group that is a control group that doesn't get the vaccine, and you observe them in the community for a certain period of time, and you see who gets COVID and who doesn't get COVID, or whatever disease you're vaccinating against. In this case, the concept is to purposefully accelerate the exposure by intentionally giving these people exposure and see how they do. Now, these types of challenges are only done on young, healthy people. We certainly don't want to do this on people who are at high risk for death. So that's One Day Sooner. I thought I'd bring that to your attention because there may be people out there who do want to enroll in this type of service. And this is controversial, and there are medical ethicists who are involved with this program to make sure that things are done correctly. Today I want to talk a little bit more about the concept of convalescent plasma. Many of you have heard that plasma infusions are useful in patients who are sick with COVID to make them better faster. Well, this is not new. The concept of plasma infusions has been around for over 100 years. In 1901, the Nobel laureate Adolf von Behring receives the Nobel Prize for a vaccination that he gave. Actually, it's not a vaccination, it's a plasma infusion that he gave to a boy to make sure that he got better from diphtheria. He did that in 1891. It took a while for him to get the Nobel Prize, but he was recognized for this. By the way, there's another boy who is famous in history, and that's a boy who received the smallpox vaccine. We talked about that in the last video. But I don't know, boys seem to be the guinea pigs back in the day. And so this boy got a lot better from his diphtheria. And since then, plasma infusions, or what we call immunoglobulin infusions, have been given to people with Ebola, with rabies, with mumps, with measles, all kinds of pathogens, whether they are viral or bacterial. So the concept is not new. However, when it comes to coronaviruses, in 2009, Yao published an article in Clinical Infectious Diseases showing that they could be efficacious against another coronavirus, the H1N1 virus. Then in 2015, the timeline goes on, and we use immunoglobulin infusions, plasma infusions in 2015 to work on SARS, right, which is severe acute respiratory syndrome. And this was reviewed and published by Mayor Jennings in Journal of Infectious Diseases. When it comes to COVID, as early as March of 2020, we were seeing reports by Cao come out from China showing that plasma infusions could be beneficial to patients. And there was a case report, the very first case report on this was published in an open forum in the journal Infectious Diseases. In April of 2020, Tehera reports in the Journal of the Armed Forces of India that this could be a good concept. And by May of 2020, the National Institutes of Health put out a summary recommendation saying that plasma infusions had no significant role in the current treatment of COVID-19, that it could or could not be useful. This is in contradiction with an FDA call in March 24 of 2020 asking companies and research institutions to consider plasma infusions in an investigational setting in patients with severe COVID-19. Later on April 17, 2020, the FDA calls for the expansion in other people who are not seriously ill to see if plasma infusions still work. Here's the bottom line. Plasma infusions are not new. Here's the bottom line. We don't know if they work. Here's the bottom line. The Florida State Department of Health and the FDA is calling for people who have had COVID-19 to donate plasma to see if we can use it in investigational studies and see if it really works or it doesn't work. The answer is we don't know. We have some studies showing that it works, some studies showing that they don't work, but we don't have very good randomized placebo-controlled trials. In June of this year, June 3rd to be exact, we had a publication in the Journal of the American Medical Association showing that in very ill patients, very seriously ill patients, it really didn't make a difference. But in subgroup analysis in people that were not that seriously ill, there was some improvement. Here's another take-home message. If you're going to get a plasma infusion, you need to get it early in the game, within 7 to 10 days of being infected. That's the problem. Many people don't know that they've been infected, and in fact, we have many people who are asymptomatic carriers. Don't worry. Since they're asymptomatic, they probably don't need a plasma infusion. But to be useful, it really needs to be done early. That's what we believe. So no surprise that the article by Lee in the Journal of the American Medical Association last month in June did not show a significant improvement in very, very ill patients. So what should you do? Here's what you should do. If you have had COVID-19 and you've got at least 2 weeks since the last time you had symptoms, and you have no fever, you need to go and donate plasma. Where can you donate plasma? I'm going to rattle off some phone numbers in a moment for our local blood banks here in Miami. You can also go to the Mayo Clinic because they are the lead organization in the investigations that have to do with the use of convalescent plasma. That means the plasma from people who have already had COVID-19 in the treatment of people who are ill with COVID-19. So you can go to mayoclinic.org. You can also call one of the local blood banks. We've got One Blood, is the name of one of our local blood banks, 305-351-2783. There's Continental Blood Bank, also in the Miami area, 305-633-7700. And there's the American Blood Bank Corporation. They are at 305-696-4336. If you had COVID and you are listening to me and you can go and donate blood, that's a great idea. By the way, what is plasma? Plasma is one of the components of blood. When we draw blood from you, it has 4 critical components. Platelets, the cells that keep you from bleeding to death. Red blood cells, the cells that go feed oxygen to all your tissues. White blood cells, the cells that are producing a response to infections. And plasma. Plasma is the liquid in which it all flows. Now, this plasma often carries antibodies, which are natural defenses that the body of a person who already got COVID is mounting against the COVID virus. So what we want to do is take that plasma, concentrate it in many cases, sometimes it's not given without being concentrated, and infuse it to a patient. Here's a piece of good news. It only takes about 200 cc's. That's not a lot of plasma to treat one patient. So for every 1 donor of plasma, you can treat 3 people who have COVID-19 in an investigational setting. So maybe this is being used in settings that are not investigational. I get it. I understand. Sometimes as physicians, we're reaching for straws and trying to do the best we can for our patients. But the call to action is in an investigational setting. The other thing I want to remind our listeners about is that the World Health Organization in the journal Science in March of 2020 published a call to action with what is called the mega trial. This is really called the Solidarity Trial, but in the trade we call it the mega trial, where we're looking at 4 lines of treatment for patients with COVID. They have to do with hydroxychloroquine. Remember that one? If the president doesn't say that plasma infusions could be life-saving, they're not going to get any bad press. So hopefully he won't say any of that, because we know what happened with hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine. It got mega politicized. So what we want to do is not politicize the science. The mega trial is looking at hydroxychloroquine, antivirals like ritonavir, combined with lopinavir, another antiviral, or lopinavir and ritonavir plus interferon beta. This is all Greek to you guys, but the point is plasma infusions are not part of the WHO mega trial. Will plasma infusions work? They probably will if we use it early in the game. By the way, the other option to plasma infusions, some of the biotech companies are taking these plasma samples, spinning them down, and developing what is called hyperimmune gamma globulin. That means that we are giving patients very concentrated forms of the antibodies that are naturally present in the plasma of people who had COVID-19 in very concentrated forms to give them a huge bang for the buck. The infusions that have been used in patients who have been treated for COVID-19 with plasma infusions have been single-dose therapies. So hopefully that's all it takes, because we're going to have a limited supply of this stuff. Keep your fingers crossed. We continue the fight, and we're going to make it out of this. I want to reflect, as I often do, on some of the scriptures that give us hope and inspiration. A lot of people are worried. We've had a lot of death. We've had a lot of cases. Welcome to Miami. It's more than just the beach now. It happens to be the COVID capital of Florida. So here are the words of Jesus Christ that we read in Matthew chapter 6 when he's talking to people about what they're going to do about the anxieties that riddle them. So anxiety isn't new. It's been around for a long time, right? Beyond biblical times. So here's what Jesus is telling us, and this is the voice of my own master. It says, "Which of you, by taking thought or worrying, can add a cubit unto your stature?" If you can't change stuff, stop worrying about it. If it's beyond your control or grasp, do the things you can, but don't reach beyond that. And why do you take thought for raiment, for what you wear? Consider the lilies of the field. They grow, they toil not, neither do they spin. They're not even following the sun to get their nourishment for their chlorophyll. And yet, I say unto you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Let me tell you, God values you. He values you even more than he does the lilies of the field. Know that there is a bigger force at play here than COVID-19. COVID-19 is not divine. It is not all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-present. Those are attributes of God. If you're a believer, focus on these things and take spiritual nourishment from them. If you're not a believer, they are great words of wisdom. And I invite you, as I often do, to explore what's going on with you spiritually. Because at some point, all of us are going to pass on. None of us are here forever. Let's hope that we get through this very fast, that new methods of treatment and prevention are available. For now, as I often close these videos, this is all we got, and 2 arm lengths away. If you are using a cloth mask, I've said it I don't know how many times, get a KN or an N95 mask. It's the best way, in my opinion, and there are those who disagree, to protect our medical community. Because if nobody has COVID, we're not going to be overwhelming our medical system. For our patients, we sell these here. For patients who are watching somewhere else or people who are watching somewhere else, they're all over the web. You don't have to get them here. Get yourself good quality masks. The cloth masks will protect other people. They really don't do a good job of protecting you, and they don't do a good job of protecting others either, but it's better than nothing. Thanks for listening. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you've never been with us before. We want to keep getting these videos to you. Also visit our Instagram page. Thanks for watching. We'll be back soon.